15th, 2023, and I'm calling the regular Belle Plaine City Council meeting in session. Should be noted those in attendance are Councilperson Peck, Councilperson Schlossman, Councilperson Morrow, Councilperson Malcolm, Councilperson Landon. Also, City Administrator Beck is here, Assistant City Attorney Gage Kinsler is here, the Mayor is here, and Sandra Wall is here. I'd like to remind all in attendance, including the council and staff, to either please shut off your cell phones or put them on the mute mode. That being said, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You were each given a gray folder which has your evaluation materials in it that we will use in closed session tonight. And then you should have the airport report and a police report that were handed out to you.
Do you have a spare airport report? So I don't have one.
Just give the airport that.
Thank you.
Do you need one?
I got the original, but yeah. Thanks.
Let's move to agenda item number 4, approval of the consent agenda. Council minutes of February 27th, 2023. Council minutes of March 1st, 2023. Receiving and filing minutes from the February 28th, 2023 Belle Plaine Community Library Board of Trustees meeting and all bills received. Questions or discussions on that agenda item?
I have a question. Is it possible, since the city clerks typed this out, the bills approved by the city council on March 1st, that we see those in the packet before we approve those, instead of seeing them the next council meeting? If that makes sense.
Well, they come in before the meeting.
You can look at all the bills. I
Okay.
can bring them to every meeting.
Okay. I understand that you guys have time, but with my tight schedule, I don't have time to look at them. So if they're typing them out
Would
anyways,
you want them to send, when the packet goes out, send the bills to?
But that's
accept the
not
bills?
ready. Is it?
I don't know.
Or, oh, you mean these?
Generally.
These are from last time.
I know, but what I'm saying is I don't see them until this time because I don't have time with my travel to see those bills before the council meeting.
We're approving bills that haven't been seen by him. And then now we're getting a list, but they've already been approved. Is your point?
Yeah. So all I'm asking, since it's already typed out, is it possible that we have a type out and then the next meeting we approve said bills?
You tell me.
We can do that. So we'd be cutting off bills like 5 or 6 days early for the normal.
She's always
Yeah, how's that going with that?
going through the bills.
Yeah, no,
and
I'm just
getting it
asking if that's
ready, yeah.
possible.
I get them on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, but you sign additional things that go to it.
Yeah. So there are things that come in.
You could
Yeah,
look at them.
We can work on it.
Could we send a tentative, a list of what we have prepared? Wouldn't
And I can
necessarily
give you
be
a
the
list of
complete list.
what's added.
Just an idea or something to think about is all I'm asking.
Sure, sure.
Try doing that. Other questions? Looking for a motion then.
I move to approve the consent agenda, the council minutes listed, and for the council and the library board of trustees minutes and bills received.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Move to number 5, resident comments. Now it's time for residents to come to the podium, state your name and your address. Please address all comments to the entire city council. This is not a time to address an individual on the council or time for debate. To the council, this is your time for us to listen to ideas and information that our residents are bringing to our attention. I also remind the council this is not time for debate. I would hope everybody in speaking during this time period would treat each other with courtesy and respect all Belle Plaine residents deserve. That being said, are there any resident comments tonight? Seeing none, I'll move to agenda item number 6. Discuss for possible approval the third and final reading of ordinance 2301, an ordinance repealing chapter 111 and granting to Interstate Power and Light Company a non-exclusive electric franchise for the city of Belle Plaine and imposing a 3% franchise fee. This is your third and final reading of this ordinance. Discussion.
How long did it take for the percentage to change? Like if we wanted to say drop it or raise it, wasn't there a certain,
Yeah.
There
I
was.
wanna say it was like 4 months,
I would say 3 or 4 months. It
something like that.
okay,
wasn't a half a year, but it wasn't 1 month we call.
so it's not like a year where we're,
Yeah. it's
No,
not
no,
a
you're not
year.
locked
No.
in for a whole year.
okay.
Other questions or comments?
And when were we saying that this would take effect? I
It
don't
depends
recall.
on how quickly, there's steps that have to happen after this all happens. Other agencies that Alliant has to go through and get permissions from. So it just depends on how quickly it moves through those agencies. He thought maybe June, for sure July,
Yeah, I remember July.
possibly May, but that would be at the outside.
Okay, thank you.
So most likely June.
Other questions or comments?
Guess I have a question. I guess we can probably specify. I assume we want it to happen as soon as they can make it happen.
I would say yes.
Yes.
That was my assumption.
Or in the new fiscal year, I mean, if it
Well, yeah.
push it for at least July 1.
Yeah, he didn't think July 1 would be a problem.
Further questions or comments? I'll look for a motion then.
I'll motion for approval of the third and final reading of ordinance 2301.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for a discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
it.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Number 7, discuss for possible approval of the third and final reading of ordinance 23-2, an ordinance repealing chapter 110 and granting to Interstate Power and Light Company a non-exclusive natural gas franchise for the city of Belle Plaine, Iowa, and imposing a 3% franchise fee. Again, discussion. Many of your questions that were asked before apply to this one also. So I'm guessing June, no later than July.
Yep.
Well, then I'll look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the third and final reading of ordinance 23-2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You got a report from the chief. Chief, what do you want to add to your report?
We did a couple interviews today with police officer applicants. We've got a couple more we're gonna look at, and one internal candidate that we're considering as well. And past week, I've been working on a Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau grant, similar to the one we have now, except instead of asking for overtime, it's a combination of overtime and equipment. And then that's going to be for a new in-car video system and a body camera that comes along with it. And then I'm going to do a secondary grant application to a completely different grant to get a second unit and more body cameras. I'm looking at going away from the current body camera manufacturer that we're using. So hopefully, with a little luck, we'll get that taken care of. That's all I got for you.
Any questions for the chief?
New unit is still what, July?
Yeah,
Okay,
I haven't heard any different.
okay.
I did update USDA on that too, so they know why it's
Oh, okay.
delayed.
And I know you asked this and I can't remember, the new house nuisance ordinance that we passed, if you had to,
So, I thought we had one house we were gonna do that with. I visited with Gage. We would have to, whatever date do we pass that, that's when the time clock starts, or whatever you want to, however you want to refer to it, as far as the number of offenses. And we're not there with that yet on that particular place.
Okay.
So
but it'll be a helpful tool for you.
I'm hoping so, yeah.
Okay.
And then we recently used a similar state code gathering substances are present. Kind of similar, but at the same time, it's a little different.
Any other questions for Chief Hudson? Okay, let's move to Belle Plaine Municipal Airport report. Bruce, do you want to come up?
So before Christmas, I had 3 presentations laying out the background, and probably a lot of that you may have forgotten. You may review a thing or two from those presentations when we get into this, what I call the 20-year airport development plan. And the main purpose of this is to make sure that you're on board or aware and are never blindsided with the strategy that the Airport Commission is going to implement going forward as we try and improve and maintain the airport. So I'll go right to it. There's 4 assumptions right there to start off with. The first 3 kind of go together. The first, there's a better than 50% chance the runway will require reconstruction within 20 years. I go back to the conversation about the ASR and with the runway goes underwater and all those sorts of things. So that the consulting engineer kind of concurs with that. The city would be very challenged to provide a 10% match for a $4 million, that's present day dollars, reconstruction project, even 20 years hence. And it would be foolhardy to count on, to assume we're going to get that $400,000 at 10%. It would be foolhardy to assume we're going to get that match from somewhere other than the city. Although it's been our experience, the 10% match has virtually always been provided by somebody else. But that's 20 years from now, you can't assume that. And the fourth thing kind of ties into it, since 2 of our current hangar renters provide, not really ties into that, but you'll see where this is revealed. 2 of our current hangar renters provide 5 of our 10 minimum aircraft census. And we do that with 6 T hangars and 1 main hangar available. And therefore, it'd be a good idea to provide space for building hangars to improve the chance of maintaining a 10 airplane census. That's the threshold for entitlement funds, you'll remember. If one of or both renters leave, of course, one of those renters is me. They can't predict the future. At the same time, we have an opportunity going on right now. There's an individual who has already purchased property in town to develop, is very desirous of providing a substantial match on a state hangar construction grant for 2 airplanes. So the idea there is he'd like to build a hangar big enough to accommodate the airplane he has plus a smaller one. And we don't have a place for that. And therefore, well, you remember the idea of the grass area next to the driveway. So with those things in mind, we've decided that we need to have two objectives. One is to arrive at a point 20 years in the future wherein the city has retired all or nearly all of its grant obligations. Remember, whenever we engage in some kind of construction, there's a period of time that the city is obligated to maintain the airport to standard and follow all the rules. And should they decide to back out and no longer want to do that, the feds will come along and they'll say, well, 5 years ago, you had a $500,000 project. You've got 5 years remaining on that 10-year obligation. You can close the airport. It's going to cost you $250,000. To illustrate, the city of Ottawa built an airport much similar to ours about the time we built ours back in the early 90s. 2016, they decided they no longer wanted to have the airport. And they went to the FAA and said, we want out of the NIPIAS. And the FAA said, fine, you can back out, but it'll cost you $80,000. And they coughed up $80,000 and closed the airport, turned it into a drag strip. So,
How'd that work?
so that actually worked pretty well, but the drag strip is well outside town, so I wouldn't suggest that for here. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and point out that it's easy to say, they'll never hold you to it. They didn't hold the banks to their obligations, but you can't ever count anything. The best course of action and the smartest thing to do is play according to the rules and hope for grace if it's needed. So anyway, so the idea is not to place a future city council between a rock and a hard place if and when a decision is required to reconstruct the runway. Such a decision should not be encumbered with the prospect of the FAA demanding repayment of the unretired grant obligation in the event the city declines to reconstruct the runway. So we want to make sure at that point that we think it's very possible that the runway will require reconstruction, that there's very little, if any, grant obligations outstanding. So when we program our projects, we want to keep that in mind. Number two, with the above objective in mind, we should aim to keep the airport in good shape and improve it in such a way that it can grow at a reasonable cost. Then, should the decision be made to close it, the infrastructure, aside from the runway, can be put to good use by the city. So what I have pictured in my mind is, the runway probably wouldn't be good for much, but everything else could be put to other use and will keep it in good shape. And at the same time, if the circumstances and the situation present itself to continue, we come up with the funds to fix the runway should it be needed. We're not behind the eight ball and we're not obligated. Does that make sense? Okay, that's kind of so the strategy going forward right now, in 2024, we're coming up here. We intend to use federal funds to turn the present driveway into a taxiway. And if you want to look at the next page, you can see what I'm talking about. To turn the present driveway into a taxiway and install a new driveway on the east of that grassy area adjacent to Iowa Mold. That's a 20-year grant obligation. Simultaneous with this project, use state matching funds to build a medium-sized hangar with an individual providing the city's match. So we'll be using state funds for that. So that's probably a 45, maybe 50%. I've seen as high as 65% match on the part of the the sponsor. But we have an individual who has so far expressed a willingness to go ahead with that. And then thereafter, within that 20-year time frame, engage in some runway rehabilitation that only has 10-year grant obligations to it. So you can see that visually. To turn over the first page, I kind of call it a visual timeline. There's a starting in 2025 or 2024, a new taxiway and driveway that goes on for 20 years, simultaneous with this medium hangar, and then a number of years later, a surface rehabilitation. That's a 10-year obligation, stays with concurrent within the 20-year one. So it doesn't, still is within that 20-year horizon, and then do another one in 2033, all those with federal money. So that's the strategy. And I guess one more thing to add to that is on the issue of the looming possibility of requiring a 10% match on a runway reconstruction. The one possibility to look at that I've only superficially looked into is a thing called and probably engaging with the county in Vinton in creating an airport authority. Now the city can do it itself. There is a law, Sandy looked it up, that allows an airport authority to tax at a valuation of 27 cents per thousand to maintain an airport and maintain its operation and upkeep. They exist mostly around big cities, but Charles City and the county that it's in created one, and they're very satisfied with it. I made some superficial contacts with the Vinton Airport Commission. Yeah, that sounds pretty neat because they're planning a runway reconstruction and some other projects that are going to amount to $6 million. And I said, where are you going to get the money? So I brought up the idea of this that ought to be something that we ought to look into. And I'm talking, this is last October, and I've contacted their chair once since then. He said, have you done anything? No. A lot of people that I've just casually, I don't get a lot of positive feedback on the idea, but it could be a county-wide thing, wherein all county property would be taxed. But if I understand this right, if that's the case, then every municipality would have a right to be on this authority and vote on their decisions. But that's about the only way I think you come up with the horsepower to without other outside help. Somebody just coming up and saying, "Here's $400,000," or somehow to do it. But I think it's worthwhile. With all that said, it's worthwhile to maintain that airport and give it the opportunity to grow a little bit. And to grow, it's going to need space for people to put hangars. And I don't, this is not a huge burden. It's not going to be, hopefully it won't be any burden on the taxpayer. Well, unless you fly on airliners, pay the fuel tax. But the local taxpayer, I'll say that, property taxpayer.
So it seems like you're looking down the road to the future, whereas in the past, we've just kind of, we need to come up with a plan, we need to come up with a project, and it's been almost.
It's just ad hoc, and as things come along, and it suddenly, I was thinking about the runway, and I went, it would be bad, I think, if we, 2 or 3 years before the FAA tells us that that runway needs reconstruction, we'll give you 90%. And you've got $500,000 of grant obligations outstanding. Because you just did something, put in a fuel system or something, because those will cost $500,000, that sort of thing. And I understand, originally, the strategy for the taxiway and the hangar, our vision was to kind of start the paperwork and applying for grants and stuff would be next year. But this opportunity has arisen. And just today I called the program manager at the state and asked him, and our consulting engineer, to make sure, because it's once the taxiway is federal funds, the hangar is state funds. Is it possible, if we really, put our shoulder to the wheel, could that be done next year? Construction next year? And it's possible. It's possible, but they'll need assurances on a number of things that probably not worth going into right now. So please, think about this stuff. And if you need me to make another presentation, I won't plan on it. The next that I'll just make the bold assumption that you understand what we're trying to do and have no objection. And if we try and be expeditious about getting this going, some votes will probably be needed in the May timeframe, somewhere around there.
What kind of revenue do we get off of leasing the hangars?
Around $15,000, $16,000. And I've mentioned this before, as a general rule, our revenues from the airport pay for the insurance and the light bill and, minor repairs that have to be done here and there. Fuel filters.
Are the rates we charge, are those pretty average compared to everybody else?
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is a lot more than you were making 12 years ago.
Yeah.
When we first got, or Mary and I first got into this, because that was a losing proposition then.
Right.
We were bleeding money all over that place.
With the current hangars we have, we can support how many aircraft?
Well, in a normal situation, you need to assume one airplane per T.
Okay.
A main hangar, probably 2 or 3. Our current main hangar renter has available to us. He doesn't actually keep them there. He keeps one there, but it would be no problem for him to provide 3 tail numbers. They don't necessarily have to be there, but they're not claimed by anybody else. And just kind of to reiterate, this census, the way the FAA tracks it, is on a website. And I've got Sandy kind of gave her an introduction to that, so at least one other person knows the ins and outs of it. And every airport manager has to, go on that website and put the tail number, the registration number of the based aircraft there, and you need at least 10. And therefore, they know there can be no duplicates. And if there's a duplicate, they let you know, hey, we've got this claimed over here, and then you got to resolve it, which happens.
And we're full as we sit right now.
Yeah.
If we use private money on this hangar and it has 2 spaces, how much does the private person, how many spaces does he get both of them?
Well,
and if
yeah.
so, for how long?
Well, okay. It's not an unusual situation, very common. And I confirmed this again with the program manager at the Iowa DOT. What the sponsor will do was get an agreement in writing with the person providing that match. So let's say it costs $200,000 to build a hangar. they agree to 50%, we'll just say $100,000. Then the logical thing to do is to look at the market out there for a similarly sized hangar. Maybe take into account that, this is not a high demand area, possibly, adjust accordingly and take that, $100,000, divide it by $600 a month or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's the number of months that he does not have to pay rent for that period of time. So it could be a long time. The weird thing is, to try and do it ourselves, we couldn't do it because we just don't have the money to put up. Number one, we have to get somebody else to do it. You're not going to get any more rent out of it. So it comes out in the wash. And the main objective is to get that entitlement money with a 10 airplane census, right? I've got 3 of those airplanes. And if for whatever reason, and I'm not giving you any hints, I don't tend to go anywhere, but say it comes to pass, then, you're just immediately 3 in the hole. And it's hard to get hangar renters to begin with. This particular individual that is desirous of the box hangar, has represented, he intends to really be a part of the community and wants to make sure that the airport remains viable into the future, and is willing to see what he can do to make sure that happens.
I mean, I like your proposal with the hangars and doing that. I guess the only reason I ask is because you said it yourself is renting hangars out here isn't really a lucrative thing, so let's say something does transpire and you leave or something happens and we lose 3 tail numbers, then how do we recoup from that with having more hangar space, but yet we're still open?
In a normal situation, you can only expect to get 1 airplane per T, right?
Mhm.
It's not totally out of the question, of course, because we have another guy who has 2 in 1 T.
Mhm.
But you need to, I guess, assume that you're only going to get 1. So say, for example, I'm not there anymore, so you'll only get possibly 8. You'll get another 1, and in a normal situation, 6 Ts, 6 airplanes plus the main hangar, 1 or 2, you're at 8. You need more hangars. Even if you have to beg people to come by dropping your rates, the revenue is less important. If you want the airport, the revenue from the rent is less important than the entitlement money.
I wasn't
that's
asking
where
that.
it boils down.
I wasn't asking that. I was just asking
Yeah.
how you get the renters here. You said you
I
had
just
3.
advertised for it. It's
Yeah.
it's word of mouth.
Because you said it's not a lucrative thing out here. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if we lose your 3, well, how do we make up that 3
You'll just have to
to
advertise.
sustain?
Yeah, you'll just have to advertise.
You're gonna have to learn how to fly.
You have to learn how to fly.
You every day.
Bellplaine Police Department Air Corps.
Yeah, there we go. Mitchellville in 20 minutes. I like it.
It's I'll be the first to admit it's a difficult situation, and in the big scheme of things, general aviation since COVID actually has experienced a little bit of a resurgence. For people don't want to fly an airliner, so people who've got the wherewithal are buying the more expensive airplanes to avoid that. And then with the military trained pilot population dropping off because the Vietnam era And then Cold War era pilot population, which was supplying the airlines to a large extent. With the end of the Cold War, that population is now retiring and general aviation is picking up the slack. And I have no anticipation someone's gonna open a flight school down there. I don't think anybody will open a fixed base operation. It's possible. There are weird things that happen. I will, by way of example, Granite Falls, Minnesota, population very similar to ours. I mean, the large towns, there's not anything close to Granite Falls. There is a construction company in that town that does construction kind of internationally, throughout the United States, Canada, maybe internationally. And they've got this thing about World War II airplanes and all sorts of stuff. And that is an active airport just from them. And so
there's always the potential.
There's always a potential. I guess that's maybe another reason to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Is to maintain it. Right now, we have a 10-year obligation by virtue of the rehabilitation that we're completing with some painting yet to do this spring. So this plan would effectively add another 10 years onto that.
Well, I'm glad to see the airport commission and especially you are proactive rather than reactive to where we're headed in the future.
Yeah.
Because
Most
if we wait
definitely.
till the bomb drops and we've got to tear all that concrete out, re-pour, I don't think Jay will be up to trying to pour runway.
Oh, and there's one other possibility I like to, the universe of things that can come about. There are cities that have sold their airports and they continue as airports as private ones. And normally it's a crop dusting operation, and they just maintain that airport for their private use, and maybe some of them they'll maintain them to enough standard for public use. They're not part of the NIPIUS, but it'll be day only operations kind of thing. And they'll patch them as the best they can, and then the city will collect some taxes from it. So if there's no more questions, I'll continue to march then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bruce.
Move to agenda item number 10, need a motion to set the public hearing for the 2023-2024 budget for April 5th, 2023, Belle Plaine Council Chambers at 1207 8th Avenue, Belle Plaine, Iowa, at 6:30 p.m. at the regular Belle Plaine City Council meeting. Sandy, you want to explain to them what we're doing again?
So this is just the normal budget process. This is the last thing that we have to do. Normally this would have happened earlier because normally we have to have this information to county by the end of March. We've been given, not just us, every town in Iowa has been given a 1-month extension to that because of the legislature's change in rollback calculations. So this is the same budget you approved already, same budget that we did max levy hearing on. Have changed, obviously, the valuations from when you originally approved it based on the new information from the state. I've also put in a couple of grant information. We got we're hoping to get this $450,000 grant. That's going to happen in that fiscal year. Change the 2.5% franchise fee that we had originally talked about to 3% that you guys just voted in. I made those few changes in the budget versus what you guys saw before, but otherwise it's exactly what you guys have already coached us to do. And you have to have a budget hearing. So.
Comments? Motion?
I'll move the motion to set public hearing for the 2023-24 budget for April 5th, 2023.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all.
Discuss for possible approval of contract with mosquito control for 2023.
Same as it has been in the past. I think you've said like if they don't make the 6 sprays, we get credit on 1 or 2 or whatever.
We might have to talk them into that again. I think we're the only city they do that.
Oh,
We're the
really?
only city that
Okay.
do that for.
Or think wet and you'll need all 5 sprays.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Starting out that way.
We don't need California wet, we just need normal wet.
Need normal Belle Plaine wet.
Right.
Normal Iowa River wet,
Mhm.
which helps our wells.
Yeah.
Any other comment or discussion on mosquito control?
Has the rate gone up quite a bit or not too bad from last year?
They left it flat.
All right, excellent. Let's vote on that. Lock them in.
Go,
Let's
hurry,
have a
go.
motion.
I make a motion for approval of the contract with mosquito control for 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve having the mayor sign the documents involving the IEDA CDBG-DR grant, which is the big one downtown that we're just a pass through on the money. A lot of paperwork because it's got.
In case you guys are curious, this is how many times the mayor gets to sign.
Excellent.
Is this state money or federal money or mix?
It is, it's originally federal money, community development block grant that passes through the state to the city, to the developer. So it goes
Okay.
through a few levels.
That's why you got all those little red flags in the sun.
I have
This
a
is-
question on the contract amount, not to exceed $25,000. Does that 25 come through from the grant? Okay, so we're not, as a city, not paying 20, okay.
Correct?
So it's on a reimbursement basis. So you'll pay the bill, submit it to us, and we'll submit a claim
back.
for reimbursement.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, grant.
Other questions? Too late to read it, folks. You're gonna have to make it. If you're looking to read it now, you're
It
in
was-
trouble.
It was really long.
Mhm.
I make a motion to approve to have the mayor sign the documents involving the IEDA CDBG-DR grant.
Is there a second to that motion?
Got it all.
I'll second.
One breath.
It's been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion on that item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Discuss for possible approval, resolution 230302, a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with EasyCog for the CDBG-DR grant administration and project delivery services. Much easier to have EasyCog do this than us.
God bless them.
Discussion or motion?
All motion for approval, resolution 230302.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Number 14, discuss for possible approval, resolution 230303, a resolution adopting a policy on the use of excessive force for the CDBG block grant program.
All in favor of excessive force.
Questions? Discussion?
Can you explain the phrasing of excessive force?
I'll ask Sandy to explain.
It talks about in there, considers excessive force if you are, dealing with people that are non-violent without weapons, that we don't make it a practice to
Use
beat up
excessive
on
force.
them.
Okay,
We're not kung fuing anymore.
got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
Just
strange.
that's what the chief told me. I have no clue. Formality resolution
Yeah,
for the federal government.
got it, understand. Strange. but-
Mhm.
So I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 230303.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Discuss for possible approval as resolution 230304, a resolution adopting required policies for CDBG funding. Questions?
That sounds like a formality.
And I think there were 5 of them.
There are.
Mhm.
So if there's no discussion, I will accept a motion for this resolution.
I move to approve resolution 230304, adopting required policies for the CDBG funding.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Oh, it's right here.
Discuss for possible approval to grant utility credit $201.28 at 1305 Second Avenue, Belle Plaine, Iowa, created by a broken pipe base.
Thank you, Paula.
I'll motion for approval to grant utility credit at 1305 Second Avenue for $201.28.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss for possible approval to grant a utility credit of $82.88 at 1001 9th Avenue, Belle Plaine, Iowa, created by a toilet leak in the basement. Discussion?
They couldn't be talked out of saving it.
Ashley tried really hard. They might regret that, especially in an older house. Looking for a motion for agenda item 17.
I move to approve a utility credit of $82.88 at 10019 9th Avenue.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, based on the recommendation from Parks and Rec Board, Discuss for possible approval of contract for porta pot rentals for 2023 from Jaybird Pot Rentals. Questions, discussion?
So the one thing I just noticed on the contract is that, it says that the services are provided on a weekly basis, but the rates are per month. Just making sure that the council's aware of that, because that could be a little confusing, so.
Correct.
How does this compare to the prior contract we had?
It's considerably less.
That's good.
Probably about I'm gonna say a couple $100 a month.
Overall, or,
I know
And
where we,
considerably less than the third bid that was gotten, because we required 3 bids. And the third one that Lance got was, they obviously didn't want to come, you know. So, I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't wanna say no, but I'll make sure I price us out of the
Yeah.
market, and they certainly did that.
and the second bid was, who did it before? Probably.
Yeah, yep,
Which was out of,
Cedar Rapids.
okay.
The second.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen this, have we? The contract in the past.
I had a question on the compensation. 5 regular units at 108 per month. Is that 108 per unit?
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
that probably should be clarified.
plus on this one, you know where to find the owner.
And the fuel environmental fee, is that, per unit per month?
That's for the little hangy thing in there so you can smell.
I know it's $10 per month, but
That'd be per month for all of them.
for all of them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Further questions?
I didn't have any other questions.
How about a motion?
I'll move to approve the contract for porta potty rentals for 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 19 has 3 reports. You have the city treasurer's report for February, the city budget report for February, and the solar report. Starting at the top with the treasurer's report. Weave your way through there if you have questions. Don't jump to the solar first, and then
Dang
have us
it.
jump back to the treasurer and have us jump to the budget. Or if we put these up in the agenda, if we have more questions.
There's a theory to that.
Well, my thought is you're a little wore down by the time we get to these reports.
Yeah.
so.
Just a few things to point out, I guess. General fund appears negative. It has a tendency to look that way this particular month of every year because a lot of people pay, 6 months at a time. So the second due date is typically in March, which we don't see until April. So we don't get the money evenly dispersed throughout the year. We get it as taxpayers pay it. So that, road use tax, Jay and I ran through it again. It still looks like we're gonna make it at the end. It's just moving really, really slowly out of that hole.
But it's tougher.
Tougher the closer we get, you know. Obviously, we know, sewer's problem. And, garbage won't, in all likelihood, will not go positive this year, before the end of the fiscal year.
Did we get that mattress out of the alley down by Rusty's Bright's mansion?
Al did.
Al did, okay.
In the alley.
And had the alley blocked when I wanted to go home before. I wasn't touching any mattress coming out of there.
The person before you just drove over it.
I thought about it, then I thought, sure as hell it'll hang up on the
Exactly.
bottom of my car.
There'll be a wire.
Look at the mayor and his
Extra
new
tire.
street cleaner.
Yep.
That's why I followed the other plan. Call City Hall and see if I had anyone left here that could move it.
Go back up.
I had to, I couldn't drive. I didn't wait for somebody to get there. I took the shortcut next to the insurance office.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's private property, you know.
I'm a customer. I could be stopping in to talk about event development. That's where their office is.
That's right.
Well, anything on any of the other reports?
I just noticed that we see on the solar report that this time of the year is not very profitable.
But I think we had snow sitting on them for.
Will be now. You got another hour of sunlight out there working on them.
I'm sure it's the same amount of sunlight, just different hours of the day.
Took our blanket, we cut the top off and sewed a piece on the bottom, so we got more hours, more warm. Last chance for questions on this. See, you're actually all looking at it. Maybe there is a question.
I looked at it earlier and just noticed that there was a noticeable trend. Which is logical.
We could look and put up a windmill, but we ought to put it over in Tama County.
Yeah.
It's illegal in Benton. Maybe illegal in Tama. I never saw how that vote came out. I just saw a lot of signs.
Yeah, I did too.
There's a guy somewhere up there by Cloutier that made a little windmill and set out in the ditch and had a sign that says no windmills. As he went to all that effort. All right, I'm moving to committee of the whole. We have none. City administrators report.
Excuse me. All right. We submitted our final packet to the CBCA for FEMA arbitration. That was due this week. Our original packet was 50 pages roundabouts for the roads and about 35 for the culverts. We had to add another 15 pages to that for the judge and the FEMA attorney to review before our hearing. Excuse me. We had a joint meet with Alliant Energy, other utilities and contractors to talk about build outs that are going to be happening this summer. And we're trying to coordinate them all with all the contractors because we have a limited amount of right-of-way space in the, in between the sidewalk and the street, and we all have to share it. There was one utility, Windstream, was not able to make it, so we're doing another one with them here coming up soon. We did find out that both Alliant Energy and USA Communications will need to tear up the alley behind City Hall. So, which is good. Because we had this meeting, they're going to coordinate their efforts so we don't have to tear it up twice. So that'll also give us opportunity to kind of finish the stormwater project from earlier, because I don't know if you've driven down that alley. It's supposed to kind of be pitched in like this so it drains down to the drains, and it's kind of all over the place. So we're excited about that project and the way those meetings went. We had to kind of go street by street with what their plans were and say where all of the private water and sewer lines were. And they had assumed that they were all in the street, and in a lot of the areas they're going to be working, that isn't the case. The guys fixed the leak on 3rd Avenue that was mentioned at the last meeting. It was cracked water main, and they were able to get it isolated very well and got it fixed in less than a working day. It went really well.
Do you have any idea of how much we were losing there? Was it a real lot of volume, or?
I talked to Nick about it, and he hasn't gotten back to me because he's in training today and Friday. So I'm hoping to catch up with him tomorrow to see what the daily pumping rate was, to see what the trends were. I didn't want to bother John with that because Nick would have more expertise on determining that amount. Tomorrow, I'm meeting at the project site, the Moore building where the grant is going to be utilized. I'm meeting with urban conservationists from the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship. Her name is Amy Bauska, and Brian Bach will also be there because of the way the Catalyst grant was, and the grant that we're working on right now. There are sustainability parameters that need to be met with the way that stormwater and things like that are handled on the property. So we're trying to develop a plan to get that stormwater back out into the storm sewer somewhere, so it isn't just dumping off into the adjacent property, which is what it's doing now. I'll know more on that later.
It dumps into the Kane Theater lot. Well, that was a slick design.
Yeah. The house, I'm going to try not to use people's names. I'm going to try to use numbers to refer to houses. 1410 6th Avenue, which is one of the nuisance houses. When I was looking around at things today, I saw that they were putting a new roof on that place and getting it sealed up, and they're gonna be working on that in the coming months.
Did that sell?
Yes. So the buyer understands that they need to come in and give updates and they have a copy of the inspection report and what the expectations are with that building.
Doing bought
Brian Lanning with I can't remember the name of the company.
The same guy that's working a couple other places.
Yes, yeah. So he's trying to fix up these places. I think so far he's doing a good job. He's done 2 down on 4th Avenue.
Yeah. And one up on 7th.
Yes.
then they're done.
No, he wants to help clean up if the houses are savable. That's
No,
his
I'm saying, are
intention.
those projects done?
I believe there are 2 done down on 4th. Neither of those were on the inspection list that I call.
Okay. I know where it's been working.
The one on 7th is gonna have a garage. They've got the trusses there. So
Yeah, he
not-
said that one may or may not get a garage. He's just gonna try to see how the numbers turn out, so that garage might go at another place.
Okay.
Just doesn't know quite for
I
sure
just
yet
saw
how
the
much.
stuff sitting there for a while.
Right. That's plan A. So I'm kind of excited about that. Rather than having to, tear these houses down and try to fit a new house on an old lot, we just make the old house work and make sure that it's done correctly. And so far from what I'm seeing, this guy's doing a good job. So after I get done meeting Amy Bauska, I have a meeting at the well field with Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, USGS, Benton County, Tama County. There's going to be quite a number of agencies there. We're looking at doing a wetland grant for out there to restore that wetland that used to be there, investigating it. There's a $250,000 grant available right now for that restoration, which would also help that turn back into a recharge area and not. Jay found a tile, one of the tiles that was put in, plugged it, and that's helped tremendously. I think just that one, with that one rain, it rebounded 10 inches. So it was taking the water from the well field and dumping it down by the railroad tracks. So what we wanted to do is what it naturally did was meander back from that stream back to the north and then work its way under the railroad bridge there. So that area will be, hopefully if all this goes through, this is an exploratory meeting. This will be my 3rd meeting with some of them and my 1st meeting with others, but they all seem to be pretty excited about it, and they approached me about it because they know we want to do some things out there. So I thought that sounded promising. There are going to be a couple of events that are coming to town, as you know, RAGBRAI, and the other one's Project Aware. We all know what RAGBRAI is. Project Aware is a river cleanup crew. They're going to start in Marshalltown and canoe down the Iowa River, picking up trash and putting it in dumpsters and hauling it away. And they have overnight spots. So it's kind of like a little miniature RAGBRAI on the Iowa River with canoes. It's kind of neat.
So they walked it last year.
They certainly could have. I did lots of times. It was low.
Date on that, Steve.
That is going to be middle of July. I can't pull it up on my phone right now. I've been posting about it on Facebook, but I just can't remember the exact date. There were some concerns that it might affect the Fireman's Fishing Tournament. It's not. It's going to be the week after the weekend of the tournament. Those folks are going to be staying in Franklin Park in tents, and So it should be a pretty fun time, and they're obviously not going to trash the place and leave cups and stuff all over the place because their businesses clean up trash. But they've picked up, I think, over 1 million pounds of I can't remember exactly, just a significant amount of trash out of the river and other waterways around the state. Yesterday, we had a report from a citizen and another person that regarding the Ragbri route and their concerns about that. So I spoke with the Ragbri coordinator, and he assured me that Ragbri brings them into town and tells them what way to head out of town, and the city has the authority to figure out which way we want them to go through town. So
as long as you've got that up, I didn't think we'd have people contacted us. We're supposed to pick 2 chairmen that'll be the contact point for people. And our understanding is, and the way this came up is the clinic was going to shut down. And they quit taking appointments. And I said, that's because they were going to bring them in to Franklin Park, then take them 13th Avenue down to First Street. And if you've ever dealt with Ragbri and the writers, we probably would have been using the clinic for people that got run over. So we've already made a decision. We're not letting go that way. Telling the clinic to stay open. They've already got appointments filled, and they quit filling any appointments. But what Steve and I need guidance on is who are we going to put in charge of this whole thing?
it could be, advantageous to run them through certain areas of town. Some people are just going to blow through and head straight down 21 and, do their own thing. But if we want to, we can have a meander around.
And
or
they have to be out of here.
12.
We have to close down our activities at Franklin Park at 12:30, right?
I never asked you if this was going to be on your mayor's report. I apologize if I.
Well, as long as you brought it up, because we need some guidance on what groups do we ask Belle Plaine Development and the Lions Club, you guys want to be in charge of this, or do we look at other groups?
We are getting a stipend to help with logistics, which is helpful.
Well, that's gonna take care of porta potties, and if he has to put a couple other extra officers on duty, it's gonna pay their salary, so that
Right.
stipend's gone.
Right. I'm just saying years previous, it was not extremely lucrative for us.
But, we need groups, we need somebody to chair this thing to set rules on, remember the last time they came through, there were little kids with Gatorade stands set up on the parking, and no problem. Most of them sold their Gatorade out.
So the Tama Toledo area is the overnight. So they'll, some people are really early risers and fast. So, they'll be trickling in here from really early in the morning until 12:30, and maybe there'll be some stragglers afterwards.
The bus people.
Yeah. So just wanted to throw that out. We've got a little time. The Ragbri,
We don't have a lot of time.
yeah, we don't have a lot. He wanted to try to get this.
do Co-chairs, just because the first meeting is April 1st.
Yeah, they want to
And
get.
they want who's coming.
Why wouldn't Belle Plaine Development do this? And that's kind of their whole mission, isn't it? Isn't it?
New director.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that even though I haven't talked to him, the Athletic Booster Club has possession of that concession stand in Franklin Park. Are they planning to run that as a concession stand? I haven't had a talk with anyone on that, because this just broke this week.
Yeah, it was like
All
yesterday
of a sudden,
afternoon.
I have the clinic in there going, should we shut down? Should we cancel all appointments? What are we talking about? Why would we cancel? She said you haven't seen some of our older drivers.
I think we should talk to the community development and talk with Chris with the boosters. You know, they may be interested in opening up that stand down there.
If we get 2 chair people and let them set the rules, so the city just, all we're gonna do is provide barricades and let them set where they want it to go. I think the current route right now says go down 7th Avenue, cross the railroad tracks and take 11th Street to Franklin Park. And of course, their current route was then take 11th Street to 13th Avenue and 13th Avenue to 1st Street. Steve, if I had already said, that's not happening. You're gonna take 10th Avenue down to 8th Street and take 8th Street back to 21 and out of town. So we clear the traffic off and we got a back way to get to the clinic without any problem there. So that part we can already let them know. Now, do we want to run them down Main Street? I don't know.
I think you do.
Do our merchants want them running down Main Street?
It's for what day is it?
Friday
It's Friday.
morning, Friday morning.
I mean, I would treat it like a 4th of July to where I think you want to show off Main Street, and I think you want them to go down the middle of Main Street. And it's for half a morning, so.
Maybe take a ride at the museum and then head to Franklin.
Sure.
Head down to Franklin then.
And then down to.
Don't go down to 13th Avenue.
Make them cross the railroad tracks. That'll make
We'll
you.
park a
Make 'em
fire.
Luzerne and bring them by gravel back to 8th Street. So does that sound workable? Tell them we want them run down Main Street to 9th Avenue. Could you give me a clue when Belle Plaine Development's director comes on board?
Wednesday.
A week from today.
Oh, then we can drop a bomb on her right away.
Well, we did that to the last 2.
Welcome, it's Christmas time.
Welcome, right, Brian?
Hit the ground running.
Well, talk to Belle Plaine Development and let's call the Athletic Booster Club and tell them we need 2 chairmen and then they can set rules. So if, now, I don't know how
There is a
many,
big packet of information that Ragbari's already provided, so.
but we have to make a decision on how many groups you're letting into Franklin Park.
For your chair people.
Well, that's
You want-
chair people.
Would you like one from each group? Or do you want,
If they want to play.
like one from community development? And if the
Yeah,
boosters were to,
If Belle Plaine Booster Club doesn't want any part of it, then let's figure out another group. So it's not all dumped on one group. And especially when the new director is starting next Wednesday. Judy, you can help her.
is there a order that I should contact? I know BPCDC would be my first contact. I'm hearing athletic boosters. Does anybody have any other recommendations on?
Have the churches that probably want to get involved at some point.
Well, but let them get involved. No, don't contact them.
I'm
They get
talking about
involved
for
through
the-
2 chair people.
Okay, who do you want the
One of
chair?
these groups turns it down, then we're gonna pick another group and let the groups make the decision, so the city's out of it.
Right, I just didn't know which order I go through. I was just looking for some clarification.
Well, let's stay non-religious. Put them all the way down at the bottom, because I don't wanna be.
Your Knights of Columbus
The
are,
Knights of Columbus have no intent on doing a concession stand.
The pancake breakfast all figured out.
Yeah, in the basement of the church.
Jody could do it.
so I just don't want anybody to think I was leaving them out. So if anybody out there in YouTube land's
Well,
listening,
then those chairmen can tell the general public, if you have interest in putting something up in Franklin Park, and then I assume we're not gonna bother anyone who has a house along there and wants to put a lemonade stand out in the parking,
peddler's licenses.
No.
then you can enforce that. Give
I'm
them a
joking.
Gun and see how many thumps it takes to the head enforcing that.
I'm just kidding.
We have a nonviolent pact we just signed.
That was for federal money. That had nothing to do with rag.
So we're still investigating a pathway for the herring, and there've been a couple of bottlenecks. I'm trying to figure out how to work through that, and I don't really have any additional information to provide right now. But the DNR and OSHA will probably want to be involved in it one way or another. Does anybody have any questions about those or anything else?
What prompted the previous owner of 1410 6th Avenue to sell when it sounded as though she was very adamant that she wanted to rehab this building?
The one that I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Maybe she looked at it.
I think that she was open to any ideas when we talked, and I don't try to talk anybody, or she asked me a lot of questions, and I said, this thing's going to need more than 10,000, more than 20,000 to get this where it needs to be just to pass the inspection. And then you've got, what do you want to do on top of that to make it, really nice? Because that neighborhood is a very nice neighborhood. There's just a few houses in there that just aren't that great. So I also got a message from the realtor that has the house to the north of that and wanted to talk to me again. I haven't been able to connect with her. She reached out this morning. So she's on my list, and I'll tell her that, I can provide her the inspection reports, and, she should probably provide that to any potential buyer, because that, that was one of the things I messaged you about yesterday, or wait, this morning,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep, and I get
That has not made it to court yet, correct?
correct. We have the notice of intent to file the default. So the next step and the last step is, if nothing is done or we don't see progress being made, I file for default, and then the court would enter presumably an order.
So it's ready. Does the council want to give me a timeline to give that realtor before we pull the trigger on that?
Yeah, because at this point, I file the paperwork, it gets in front of the judge, and the judge signs it. So you're looking at 2 or 3 days.
And then what happens after that?
Then an order would be entered, basically saying that they have to abate the nuisance within, 30 days. Just like the last one with, and I don't know the property address, but the last property we acquired was demolished. The owner of that property did not abate it.
1402 Second, is that the one you're referring to?
And then we ultimately ended up getting, title.
So that's what would happen to this property then too, is the same thing you're stating that happened at 1402.
Right. That's what the city would request, because there's no hearing. Nothing's been filed on their behalf. So we request that, they be given the 30 days. Otherwise it is demolished at city cost.
Has the realtor, Steve, has anybody even been in contact with her to try to buy it?
Well, she called me this morning. I wasn't able to catch back up with her because I was working on a lot of stuff today.
And we've contacted.
And I didn't want to call her really until I talked to Gage.
And I apologize, I didn't get.
That's fine.
Message back in time, but our office has been in contact with the owner, because this is the owner that we had trouble locating at first, and finally found her up in northern Iowa. And last week when we spoke to her to give her that notice of intent to file default, she had indicated that it was on the market and she had somebody looking at it. Seriously.
Well, the first one backed out that looked at it.
Well, this was, again, last week, the conversation was what she told our office was that she had somebody else looking at it. So I don't know. again, that's just taking her word for it. I have no proof of that.
What about the other Sixth Avenue property?
The
The farther up north.
Carlson, I don't know the number in that one.
Well,
I can't remember.
I'm not good with the numbers. I know the name because that's what
I know the names
Yeah.
too,
But that property is, we have a proposed order out there, so the judges, we're waiting on the judge.
So we have,
That one's farther along than this other Sixth
but,
Avenue.
so how long do you want to give the other Sixth Avenue property?
I think we really see what the realtor has to say to Steve, you know, if there's a potential buyer, then we don't want to file on her and, as you say, or we say, we don't want to demolish houses, we want them to be rehabbed. So if there's somebody out there that wants to purchase it,
Right.
give them opportunity.
Well, if
So I would say by
asking
next-
Price they're asking. Good luck getting it.
I know.
Never seen a property start out at 5,000 and end up at 19,000. Nothing changed.
So maybe Steve can give us a report next meeting
Yeah.
to know where we're at with that property.
negotiating tactic. Well, I think there's just some, with the crew, that's going around doing these houses, they have a lot of, their workforce is large enough to tackle a big project. Where, you know, if someone's just like a flipper and they're just, they're just maybe two people, it's going to be a heavy lift. But if you have a crew of a lot of people, and the other thing is with the economy and interest rates, and the housing market has slowed down a little bit. So it's going to kind of shift into a buyer's market. So we could see some of these going up for sale, and I'm interested to see how it goes. But after I talk to the realtor, I'll get a idea, and then we'll try to set up a deadline or a timeline.
The reason I asked about the 1410 6th Avenue is I think it's important that we realize to not give those 8-month, 9-month, 10-month extensions, that we stick to tight deadlines and see if the person is actually serious about rehabbing the house or just talking about it. And I think that we've seen that with this one, that she was just talking about it because she moved along with selling it pretty quickly after we said 3 months.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think after she got the city's response, that's when she started talking about it.
Right.
And we've also updated, I don't know if this has been mentioned either by Jennifer or by me in the past, but we've also now updated the letter that we send homeowners. The dangerous building notices say that if you plan on appealing, these are the things that you need. Kind of a detailed plan, a timeline, so where you're getting
I
the
think you
funding.
did tell us.
That's good.
So that they have more of an idea of what the council's looking for.
Very good. So we're just trying to streamline the process, because we went from doing 2 a year to we've done 21 in the last couple of years, placarded buildings. So we've got the route that we're doing this, and then we also have the 657A, which is what Gage is working on a couple of other properties. That you just try to pick out the best strategy for how to get where you need to go. Are there any other questions?
Anything else for the administrator? Because you ate up the mayor's report with Ray. Before you do anything, check with Brian tomorrow and review that route, so that Belle Plaine Development doesn't feel like.
Brian Baumgartner?
Yes.
Okay.
I have no correspondence. I have no old business, resident comments. Jay, have you got any comments?
Oh, not really.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna give you till 8:05 a break, because I have a few documents to sign here that have to be sent out tomorrow, and then I will ask you if we should go into closed session.
Do you want me to keep?
The camera can be shut off, because